Right now, presenting his talk, To Be Determined, please welcome Matt D. Smith to the Hang Time stage.
Just imagine you're the opening keynote speaker for a big conference in New York City in the prestigious Hammerstein Ballroom. David Bowie played here. America's Got Talent has been filmed here. This is a big deal. People paid to be here. What would you talk about? Like, seriously, I need some ideas. Well, I like to start this conference the same way I like to start a lot of design projects. Most design projects are to be determined. And I thought about, oh, there's lights. I thought about just doing this as a joke, that my talk was named To Be Determined, and then the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense. So when I start a new design project, I like to ask a lot of questions. So for this conference, for everyone here today, I'm sure you've thought of questions, but if you haven't, write some down. Think about the things that you would want to design for yourself for today. Who do you want to meet? Who do you want to talk to? What conversations do you want to have? You can really design your own experience at this conference. So if we look at the definition of design in a very nerdy way for just a minute, it's a plan or a drawing to produce the show, to show the look and function of something before it's made. And I intentionally made the X a variable because you can really design anything. You can design an app, you can design a logo, illustration. But today, I want to talk about how you can design yourself. You can design your day, the experience that you have. You have full control over what you do today. There's like a week-long conference packed into one day. So there's lots of decisions to make and lots of things that you can do. My clicker is a little slow. There we go. So when you think about what you want to do today, and when you hear everyone else's story, and you see all of the success that someone else may have had, or the conversations that you have, I want you to remember that you are X, and you're going to Y. Everyone else is A, and they're going to B, and your path may share similar features. There may be some similarities that it's hard to distinguish, but they all have their own challenges. They all have their baseline for where they're coming from and where they're going, and you don't really know 90% of the struggles or really anything else that goes into someone else's goals or success or any type of achievements that happen. So I think it's important to remember that you are X and you're going to Y. And while that may be similar to someone else's path, that you really get to dictate and decide the direction that you go. Come on, clicker. You can do it. So I have 4 kids and read a lot of Dr. Seuss. He's my current favorite philosopher. I just really like this quote because only you can control your future. You have control over your own X and your own Y, where you're going, and if your clicker works or not. Sometimes you can't control that. You have experience today, you have a control today over your experience, your conversations, your questions that you ask people, the advice that you get, the knowledge that you absorb, the outcome for today. You get to have full control over that. And you get to make friends. I think that's one of the coolest things about conferences. One of the things that I recommend to anyone that ever reaches out to me for advice about going into their career or getting more freelance work or just furthering themselves in any way in our industry, one of my biggest recommendations is to go to conferences. I've met some of my best friends at conferences, and some of the most valuable relationships that I've had have been at conferences. Then you take it on Twitter, and then you meet at another conference. Sometimes it's hard to have a friend when you're just working all day. So it's nice to be able to meet people, and you're not really networking if you're just making friends, but then inadvertently you're building your network. So it's a good place to be. So congratulations for completing one of my best pieces of advice to come to a conference. And just one little kind of tidbit, pro tip, mindset thing that I want to talk about before I really dig into the meat of the talk is the idea of being dismissive versus curious. Now, when you hear people talk, including myself, they might say something that hits you the wrong way, something that says, oh, that's stupid. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, I want to challenge you to when you find yourself, if you find yourself reacting that way, to move into a curious kind of mindset. Why did they say that? What life circumstances, scenarios do they find themselves in that would bring up that point of view that they're trying to hit home for me? And even if you disagree with it, you can at least dig a little deeper and understand where they're coming from, why they're saying the things that they're saying. Just a little super quick pro tip. So the first thing that I want to talk about to determine your experience at this conference, to determine the experience you have on your next design project, or to determine the trajectory of your career, I think it starts with confidence. I think that everyone in here needs a little more confidence, including myself. No one knows that you're insecure. No one knows that you're awkward in conversations. No one knows that you're scared to talk to someone in the conference hall. No one knows you're afraid of bombing the opening keynote. And because of that, you can decide right now, I'm going to be confident today. I'm going to start those conversations. I'm going to talk to those people, and it's going to be great. I get to design the way my conference experience goes. And if I can design my conference experience, I can design next week, I can design my month, I can design my career, and ultimately my life. So, which brings me to rollerblades. I just could not help myself with the keynote animation. It just worked out. So, when I was 13 or 14, I was super into rollerblading. I was watching the rollerblading movies. I lived in a rural, small town of a population of about 6,000, and there wasn't a lot to do. I had older siblings that were 12 years older than me, lived in other states, so I was left to my own devices, and rollerblading was a big passion of mine for a solid year or two. And I had this friend that lived about a mile from my house, and I would rollerblade over to his house almost every day after school. And one day, my best friend Ray was at my house, and my bike had a flat tire. I don't remember the complete circumstance, but I had my rollerblades, and I was gonna rollerblade over to John's house, but Ray didn't have any rollerblades, and I didn't want to rollerblade slow because I was all about it. And so I had a brilliant idea. I said, Ray, I want you to jump on my back. It's kind of downhill on the way to my friend's house. So I'm like, if he jumps on my back, we can just, I'll just coast. I'll just kind of get rolling a little bit, and he'll jump on my back. It'll be great. I was 100% confident this would work. So I braced myself. I'm like, all right, Ray, jump on, buddy. So he jumps on, and I get ready, and shoo, boom! I land directly on my back. But on top of Ray, he hit a little harder than me. I think he took it a little harder than I did. And even though that happened, I thought to myself, gosh, I just knew this would work. If I just maybe lean a little forward, maybe split stance a little bit, and Ray's getting off the ground, kind of holding his back. And I'm like, Ray, I'm pretty sure I can do this. If I just lean a little bit farther forward with a split stance, I'm pretty sure I can get you there quicker. So with the look of desperation and brokenness in Ray's eyes, he reluctantly agreed for a second try. So I said, all right, Ray, you ready? he was not ready, but he did it anyway. He jumped on and, oh my gosh! Like Ray, I'm pretty sure he's still in pain to this day from that 13-year-old experience. And the big takeaway for me from that is I, to this day, am still confident I could get that to work. If anybody has a set of rollerblades, I will 100% try that on the sidewalk with you after the conference. And if you fast forward a couple of years, fast forward like 3-4 years, I'm working summers with my dad. He's a crop duster in rural South Georgia, spraying crops, flying in a plane, and my summers are spent loading chemicals into his plane, gassing him up, and then I've got about an hour of kind of downtime in between his loads that he sprays. And he had this old Mazda RX-7. He bought it in 1979. This is probably in the mid-90s, so it's pushing 20 years old. It was pretty cool, but it was definitely beat up, and a little bit, the speakers were dry rotted. There was no CD player. I think it even had like a CB radio in it. I don't know if anybody knows what a CB radio is, but it had one in it. And when I got my learner's permit, I think it was around 15 and a half, my dad was like, okay, we're gonna get you a CD player, we're gonna get you new speakers, and we're gonna install it in the Mazda. And I was unaware. That is a very loud air conditioning system, but I'm glad because it's hot up here. Just wanted to make sure that we weren't crumbling or something. So anyway, the CD player and the Mazda, I had no idea how my dad was going to pull this off. Like, this is an old 20-year-old dashboard. How could you possibly put a CD player into this dashboard? Like, there's no way. There's like hard pieces of plastic that are immovable. And these speakers, it was just beyond my capacity for understanding. And he was like, it'll be no big deal. I don't know if I knew then that he taught electronics in the Army, and he had plenty of experience doing this. So when the time finally came to install the CD player, he grabbed the dashboard, and I'm looking in disbelief, and he just pops the whole thing off. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to break it. And he's like, well, we're just taking the panels off. And I'm like, well, you can't take the panels off. I mean, this thing you could see the metal on the inside, and I was freaking out. And he was like, somebody put this here. We can take it out. And in that moment, I had this like revelation in my mind. Oh my gosh, somebody did something. Therefore, we can undo it and also redo it. I don't know what it was about that day. We installed the CD player. We ran the remote wire and the power wire for the amplifiers. We got the speakers set up. And from that day forward, I had this profound shift in my thinking. Oh my gosh, if somebody does something, then I can also do it. It was just kind of a profound moment for me. And it kind of made me think about this guy, Roger Bannister. I don't know if anybody is a runner or knows this guy's name. Doesn't matter, I'm going to tell the story anyway. So Roger Bannister was the first guy in 1954 to run the 4-minute mile, or under 4-minute mile. He ran it in 3 minutes, 59 seconds. And everyone thought it couldn't be done. And if you read up on Roger, it says that he visualized achieving it so he could create a sense of certainty in his mind so his body and emotion would connect. And he ran the mile in under 4 minutes. And within a year, someone else ran the mile in under 4 minutes. And now it's kind of a gold standard amongst like high performance athletes, high performance runners. But in the same way that I didn't believe that a CD player could be put in, and it could be done in the same way that no one thought that he could run a 4-minute mile, under a 4-minute mile, then a lot of people started doing it, and it just became the new normal. So I want to again just remind you that you are X on a path to Y, and I want all the stories that you hear today and all of the things that you do to be kind of unlocked before you as you're on your own path. Like, get inspired by those things, but realize that you're on your own path. Come on. They did their thing. You can do your thing. You're not the same as everyone else. This would be so much nicer if the slides were a little smoother, but you know what? It's just part of it. Oh, what happened there? Okay. When you have the feeling that anything's possible, sometimes you wind up acting on it. I think this quote for me was great for the end of this confidence section, because if you do any reading about James Cameron, you will find out that he was a physics major at Cal State. And then he dropped out after changing his major to English. He eventually dropped out, had a passion for screenwriting, and just worked a bunch of odd jobs before he ever really got started. He built little like toy sets for movies, a bunch of random things. And then eventually in the 80s, he wrote Terminator, an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. What would the next movie be? Aliens. I know what the next movie is, but I want the slides to happen at the same time. You know, it's the whole thing. Titanic. These are big movies. Like, he was a truck driver to support his screenwriting habit. And he believed so strongly in his vision that he just kept going. And then, against all odds, against every force possible, he did what no one thought could be possible. The pinnacle of his screenwriting career, he used papyrus. I'm blaming that one on Keynote. That was almost a good joke. He used papyrus for Avatar. Sadly, they retired papyrus for the sequels, and I think that was a huge mistake. Salvador Dali is one of my favorite artists. He's one of the people that inspired me to get into art in the first place. I just really gravitated towards his style, and I've been to a lot of his museums, and I just kind of love this quote. I think when you have confidence, when you believe in yourself, the way Roger Bannister believed he could run the 4-minute mile, the way I still believe I can carry all of you on my back on rollerblades, it's either easy or impossible. And I think, you know, if we were to all walk to Atlanta, you might think, oh, that's impossible. Well, like, if you just take one step at a time, you would get there. I think if you can break down those big problems, it becomes easy instead of possible. Which brings me to trajectory. I feel like if you have enough confidence and you're coupling that with the proper action, it will put you on a trajectory that is positive, that will move you into the future. So when I was in my early college years, I did not have a great trajectory. I was kind of a floater. And I was taking art classes, and I was kind of doing some things that would later kind of benefit me later in life in my career. But I was really just kind of searching for the next fun thing to do on the weekend. And it wasn't until my wife, then girlfriend of about 2 years, we had a long distance relationship for like a semester or so. And we had this long conversation, and on the end of that conversation, she said, Matt, this wasn't like an ultimatum or anything. She said, I just don't know if I want to be with somebody that's partying all the time and that's doing X, Y, Z. So, yeah. And I kind of thought to myself, like, man, you know, I don't really want to be that person either. So I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I did know the things that I didn't want to be. So even if you're unsure about where you're going or your trajectory or what your why path even is, you can use the process of elimination to help you just cut things out of your life. Well, I know I don't want to do that, and I know I don't want to do this, so that leaves these options available. And that was a big moment for me as well. And my dad used to say this all the time. I got so tired of hearing this. Birds of a feather flock together. I'm like, God, I would wish he would stop saying that. But this, to me, just is so true, and I just had to put it in here because I think there's no better place than at a conference. Everybody around here, I would wager that every single person here wants to improve themselves. I mean, why else would you come to a design conference if you don't want to get inspired, do better, learn some cool things? So like, these are your people. If you don't have people, meet them. These are your people. This is your flock, your Dribbble flock. Maybe we'll do a new hashtag or something. You can get what you want when you have people around you to support that. And if you don't know what you want, that's okay. You can just go explore. You can explore illustration. You can explore food lettering. You can explore product design. It's okay, because I think all of these things that you can accumulate and the knowledge and the experience, they all build to a forward momentum, forward trajectory. And it's going to be hard. It's not easy to learn new skills, new software. There's like a new design tool every other day. And I've been doing this for a long time. I will just say that all of them are better than Photoshop. For some things. Photoshop's still great for some things. But the obstacles equal growth. When you work out, your muscles begin to tear. And with the proper recovery, they build back stronger. And I believe the same thing is true with your confidence. When you flex your confidence muscle, you might need to recover a little bit. But I believe the same way that your muscles can repair and grow, you can build your mental capacity, your emotional capacity. I know that my emotional capacity has been strained to the extreme. I've been married since 2005, whatever that math is. I've got 4 kids, and there are a lot of obstacles. But there's a lot of growth as well. So I also just kind of really love this quote. It kind of helps keep the balance when you have failures, when you have success. Like, you don't want to get too puffed up on any great success, and you don't want to let some random failure not be an obstacle. You want to just kind of keep pushing. So stay kind of in the middle. When a couple of years ago, I went to San Francisco, and I did the Adobe Live 3-day session where they give you 2 hours block of time each day, and you're streaming live with Adobe. You got a co-host, you're designing stuff, and I was so excited. So I designed all this stuff, and thought it went pretty great. And maybe later in the evening, they would upload the live stream. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to get in there, see how many thumbs up I got, see how many comments were on there. Man, I just cannot wait. It's going to be so great. The very first comment that I got, Matt looks and sounds like a AAA douche. Not exactly the comment I was looking for. But I had a great time. There were eventually lots of other great comments. This is the one I remember. Maybe I am a AAA douche. Not only do I look like one, geez, I sound like one. I thought about, should I respond to this guy? And eventually I was just like, you know what? I don't want to belittle him. For the record, he had 0 subscribers, 0 videos. And I'm not saying that to belittle him. I think that there's some saying, the people who matter don't mind, the people who mind don't matter. And so I just commented back and said, is a AAA douche better than a regular douche? If so, thank you very much. And so even when I'm crafting this talk, even when I'm designing a product or I'm working on a video, I'm battling this thought every time. Even right now, this is stupid. Nobody cares about this. This talk is dumb. So I guess that's my challenge to you, is fight the fight with me. Be confident. People do care. If only a handful of people kind of get you or become part of your flock, that's okay. Don't let the people who do so little for you have control over you. I'm sure a lot of you are great, but I can't rely on everyone's thoughts about me to project me into the future. Only I can control that. This is one of my favorite authors. He was kind of like the pioneer of the kind of motivational speaker, Jim Rohn. One of his books, The Art of Exceptional Living, is one of my all-time favorite books. And I love what he said about changing your direction overnight. Because a lot of times we'll see people talking, we'll look at everyone's success, and we're like, oh, man, if I could just get my portfolio site together, I could get that. And if I could do this, then I could do that. But I think what's important is just changing your direction. Oh, there we go. It's just one step at a time. If you can just change your direction, even today, right now, you might be struggling with this and you're scared to do that. Well, you just need to that's it. That's all you got to do. You just change direction. All right, I'm designing something. Here I go. And it's not going to be that big and scary because your path is your own. It doesn't need to look like everyone else's. Come on, keynote. So you're ready now. Everyone asked me last night at the cocktail thing, are you ready for your talk tomorrow? And I was like, yes. Yes. I wasn't ready. I'm not ready to do this, but I'm also ready. You have to be ready. When we had our first kid, I was making $14 an hour, and I wasn't ready to have my first kid. I wasn't ready to learn web development. I was a designer. My boss wanted a Flash website. I wasn't ready to learn ActionScript, but I bought a book, I went to this class, and I started learning it. And eventually, the Flash became no longer a thing, so I had to start over again. I wasn't ready for probably any of the big responsibilities that have happened in my life. Wasn't ready to be quasi-let go from my job in 2007 or so. I wasn't ready to accidentally go full-time freelance in 2008. Definitely wasn't ready to be the design lead on like a mobile project for some big agency when I had only done a very minimal amount. I wasn't ready when my wife got pregnant. Just about any time, was not ready for that. But this is us now. This is the single most greatest joy in my life. It's both the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, and it's the most rewarding, beautiful, joyous thing in my life. And I wasn't ready for any of it. This is one of my favorite quotes. I've got a lot of favorite quotes. Just keep a track record of all of them. If I'm not confidently taking action, I'm not feeling too good. So the best way to determine your future is to create it. The best way to determine your experience at this conference is to design it and create the conference experience that you want. You can design your life, you can design your career, and you're ready to do it now. Thank you very much.